I just knocked over my light. Hello! So today I am going to be sharing some thrillers. Some of these books are ones that I have talked about before and have spoken very highly of, and then a couple are ones that I have not yet mentioned on my channel that are newer reads for myself. And to be honest, I read thrillers all throughout the year because I love scaring myself. I think it partly has to do with the fact that I've been watching horror movies since I was like 5 years old. Probably not the healthiest thing for a child to watch. I'm basically just immune to scary things, so I am continuously trying to find books that successfully scare me. The first book that I want to start off with is called Local Girl Missing by Claire Douglas. You can't see, but this book is very damaged. Like, it looks like it rolled around in dirt or something. I don't know what happened, but I went up to the guy working at Target and I was like, you're gonna have to give me a discount on this because it was the only one left on the shelf. I'm not gonna buy a paperback for $16 that has rips, tears, and like mud all over it. So I managed to have him get it down to $10, but honestly I think it should have been less. But I'm not really the kind of person that cares about the quality of my books because I'm not very nice to my books. But anyway, this book has two alternating point of views between two female characters, a girl named Sophie and then another girl who was her best friend named Frankie. And basically Sophie started dating this guy who Frankie felt very uneasy towards. She didn't trust him, she thought he was dangerous, but Sophie was very much smitten with him, and after dating this guy, Leon, Sophie ended up mysteriously vanishing. And so this book takes place years later from Frankie's point of view after her best friend has been missing for years and years, and then it also alternates back to the year 1997 from Sophie's point of view. It's really interesting going back and forth and then throughout the book kind of piecing things together. Frankie decides to return to her hometown to kind of find closure over the whole thing and maybe even discover a little bit more about what happened to Sophie. But while she's there, she sees this woman who looks exactly like Sophie, and she begins to wonder if maybe is she seeing her ghost. What I loved about this book is that it really kept you guessing. I had no idea what was going to happen. This book just took one different turn after the other, and it was so fascinating watching all of the different pieces come together with the alternating perspectives. It was such a pleasant surprise. Here I have Missing by Kelly Armstrong, and I mentioned this book before on my channel. I've talked about it a bit, but at that point I hadn't really read that much of it, and I hadn't finished it yet. So now I have finished it. I finished it very quickly once I actually got into it because it is Kelly Armstrong and she never disappoints for me. I've been a fan of her since I was like 11 years old. She's just always writing new books, and she has so many books. She writes so many different genres as well, anything from fantasy and paranormal to a contemporary thriller slash mystery such as this one. It is about a girl who in her hometown, it is normal for everybody who lives there to eventually leave once they reach a certain age. She starts to realize and kind of figure out that perhaps these people aren't just leaving, maybe they are actually disappearing. I just have to read the end of this summary to you guys because this is what caught my attention when I read the blurb. It says, "I have to go looking for all of them, but I can't shake the feeling that while I'm out searching in that endless mountain forest, someone is watching, watching and waiting." And I just love thriller books that give you that sense of somebody being there watching you the whole time. You know what I'm talking about? If that's not your thing, I don't blame you, but I love it. So next is a book that my mind is still reeling over. I read it I think a couple weeks ago, but I still have not been able to stop thinking about it. Books that just completely infest your brain and makes you doubt everything around you and basically reassess every person you walk by on the streets. At least that's what's been happening to me. This book was just creepy, but I highly recommend reading it. It is called You by, I believe it's Caroline Kepps. You is about a guy named Joe who works at a bookstore. Joe becomes obsessed with this girl named Beck. He learns everything about her, and he then kind of forms these strange plans and ways to assure that somehow she becomes a part of his life and him a part of hers. This book is told in second person narrative, and so you're basically put directly in the mind of a sociopath. I don't think I've ever read a book where the narrative is that of what, you know, would be the antagonist. The reader is meant to eventually start very disturbingly sympathizing with Joe. It is absolutely fascinating to understand and try to work through his moral reasonings for why he's doing what he is doing. Kind of really twists your brain around to think about this sort of perspective and the different types of reasoning that can occur in someone's mind, and it's just insane. It will be different from anything you've read, guaranteed. Yeah. Still thinking about it. Let's do this one, The Devil You Know by Trish Dollar, another book that I have talked about before on my channel. Essentially, this book kind of takes on a very stereotypical horror, scary movie type of feeling to it, a very action-packed one. It is about a girl named Katie who basically she goes camping with these two very attractive male cousins. It ends up being a very poor decision because one of these cousins is not at all what he seems. It's not anything incredibly thought-provoking like You was. It's more just a fun thriller. It had sort of that cat and mouse theme going on. Next, this is another one that I read on my Kindle, and it is called This Is Not a Test by Courtney Summers. I think it's more of a horror book. It's not technically a thriller, it's definitely more of a horror, but I thought I would include it anyway just to add another book that is more of like a scary book. It's basically takes place during the end of the world, and it follows this girl named Sloane who has secured herself in her school with all of the remaining students that are there as well. But outside, the Walking Dead are pounding on the doors and trying to get through to bite them, kill them. If you are bitten, then you die. Just like that, you just die. This was a success for me because I find many zombie books to be very cheesy, not very good. This one was so good and played with so many dark themes and had this very like scary, unsettling atmosphere to it. So if you like zombies, check it out. And I have another book that I read on my Kindle. I've been flying through a lot of thrillers on my Kindle these past few weeks. Since I am moving soon, I don't want to have too many physical books to bring with me or that I have to choose to leave behind. The next book is called The Good Daughter by Karen Slaughter, and it is about two sisters, Charlotte and Samantha, who when they were younger there was an attack on their home, and unfortunately their mother was killed in this attack. And so this book takes place 28 years later and follows Charlie, who has now followed her father's footsteps of becoming a lawyer, and she ends up dealing with this case, a school shooting that brings up a lot of bad memories for her and just brings up her past for both her and her sister. This book is a very character-driven, family drama, intense thriller. I would advise my younger audience, as well as those of you who maybe are not comfortable with this sort of content, that this book does contain a lot of violence and gory scenes and details. So if that's something that you don't want to read, this might not be the best book for you because it was a very dark and disturbing, but also fantastic, and this book has been getting a lot of hype lately. I am not really into crime novels, but I found that with this one it had so much more to offer. I especially admired and loved the character development and the relationship that was portrayed between the two sisters. Bravo to the author because she did such a phenomenal job with her characters, but again, I will advise you that if you don't like gore and violence, might not be the best for you. Then we have Don't Look Back by Jennifer L. Armentrout, one of her most underrated books and one of her lesser known books. I hardly ever really hear people talk about this. This book follows a girl named Sam, and her best friend Cassie went missing a while back. So Sam actually comes back, but she has no recollection of what happened to her. She has completely lost her memory. She does not know anything about her life. Sam decides she needs to find her best friend. Even though she doesn't really remember anything about her best friend, she's determined to find her. But it seems that whoever may have been responsible for their disappearance is still hanging around, and it becomes very evident that this person does not want Sam to remember anything. I have so much love for it. It just had everything in it. This is also such a great fall read. It takes place during the fall and really creates that very rich fall atmosphere while you're reading it, so you're almost like imagining the colors and the feeling of fall with this exciting thriller happening at the same time. It's not very long, but it feels like it could be long because somehow so much happens and it's amazing. And yeah, I guess that will be it for today. So hopefully you guys can get around to reading some of these. Let me know in the comments which one sounds like your type of book. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's recommendations video, and I hope that you are all having yourselves a fabulous day, and I will see you all next time.